Thank you, please. All right. So I don't know if you guys have ever had those like situations where like you're sitting in class or like at home and your parent or teacher, they sort of like look at you and they're like, "Can I talk to you?" Or like, "Can you come here?" And you're like, "Me? Like what did I do wrong?" And you take that like 30-second walk and you're like, "Did I do this wrong? Or wait, was it this? Like is it something that I did wrong?" And you're just like so fearful. You're like, "I don't know what I could have possibly done wrong." So I'm sitting in my third period class, which is also my free period, and my advisor slash guidance counselor, his name is Clint. He looks at me and he's like, "Can I talk to you?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I did something wrong." And I get up and I'm walking to his room and I'm like, "This is serious. Okay, let me think about what I could have done wrong. Like, it wasn't this. Like, it couldn't have been this." And I'm taking this walk and I can't think of anything that I did wrong. And then he finally turns to me. He sits at his desk. He moves his coffee aside. He puts his elbows on the table. He looks at me. He leans in, and I'm like, he's about to drop the biggest bomb. I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And he's like, "I don't think advisory is going the way it should be." And I'm like, oh my God, okay, so it's not me. It's not something I did wrong. But of course I'm confused. I don't want advisory to be unnatural or weird. So we start having this conversation about advisory in the years prior and what we should be expecting from advisory now, so it's useful for me and useful for him. And it was a great conversation because he worked off my feedback, and immediately the day after, advisory was different. I just saw a change in the vibe, a change in the environment. The students were acting sort of different, and he was acting sort of different. So it was all working out for everyone, and I think that's like the beauty of iteration. Like, he took what I said and he just turned it into something great. And of course my advisory isn't perfect now. It's not like an advanced proficient, you know what I mean? It's not like a 5. It's maybe like a 4. I would give it a 4. No offense to Clint, but it's not a 5. But when it came to my work in terms of iteration, it was a whole other story. I am the kind of student where you give me new work and I want it to be perfect. Like, I'm talking about like every single detail and every single word. I spent probably 30 minutes on questioning whether or not I should add that in. I want it to be amazing, especially if it's really difficult work, because I want to show the teacher, like, I know what you're doing. I see the challenge that you're facing me with, and I will definitely take this challenge. So I had a CTE class, and I'm not a technology guru. I'm not like a perfect person at technology. And it was hardware, it was software, it was working with electricity. It was like really complicated work that I'd never seen in my life. And so he would give us these assignments, and I wanted them to be perfect. And I would take a day-long assignment and turn it into like a week-long process. I would work and work and work, and in working in that week, when I should have been finishing that in a day, work started piling up. And I got so extremely stressed after a while, because I'm like the amount of work that I had to worry about when all my other classes were fine just in CTE, it was overwhelming. And I should have passed CTE in January. I ended up passing it in June, 6 months later, half a year later, Jesus Christ. Because my vice principal, Maddie, she came up to me in the hallway, and she knows my grades. She knows that like all my other classes are fine, but she sees CTE, and she knows I'm struggling. So she stops me, and she's like, "Amanda, what's going on with CTE?" And I'm like, I just want it to be perfect. I want it to be a 5. I don't want to have to go back and like change my assignments. Like, and she looks at me and she's like, "Are you serious?" She's like, "Girl, just hand it in." And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Just go ahead and hand what you have in." And of course, there's that person in the back of my head that's like, "No, don't do that. That's not what you do. You want it to be perfect. You want it to be detailed. You want it to be amazing." But of course, I had to push that person out of my head and sort of hand what I had in. So I was working on an assignment at the time that I was, going through that whole process for, and I just handed it in, and I ended up getting a 3. It wasn't a 4, it wasn't a 5, but it was a 3, and I could work from a 3. And I had been planning to add this whole intricate thing to my project, and it ended up just being, his feedback ended up being, just take this out, add this point, and add this point. And I was like, are you serious? Because I was about to spend like another whole month working on this assignment. And he was like, no, it's fine. I submitted my new assignment with his feedback, and it ended up being a 4 and a 5. And that's when I sort of learned that it's okay to try new things or do new things and it not be a 5 at first, it not be perfect at first. Like if you're an inventor, if you're inventing something and you think it's gonna change the world, you don't make the perfect machine the first time, you know what I mean? Like you go through prototypes and you figure out like how to change the design, like make it custom to you, make it custom to the situation, and you go through that long process, and that's okay. And I also learned just to not be afraid to take risks, because once you're not afraid of failure, you're not afraid to go up and do different things, try new things. I remember even coming to my school was a risk in itself, because it's a new school. There was no grade above me to sort of guide me in any way. And so I took that risk of coming to my school, trying this new school with this new initiative and this new thing. And I mean, I'm here in Texas. I'm from New York. If this isn't risk-taking in itself, then I don't know what is. Thank you.